Mike McCarthy was talking yesterday about the penalties, and I had said this yesterday. Recently, Lincoln Riley, the coach of USC, came out and said you can't be paralyzed by getting penalties. Many of the best college football teams through the years have had penalties, and a lot of penalties. So I went and looked up last year in the NFL, the penalty leaders, and we went and looked them up, and Dallas led by a lot. But 5 of the top 6 penalty leaders had winning records. And of the top 11 penalized teams last year, 6 of the top 11 made the playoffs. So it was good team, kind of good team, bad team. It was all over the map. So penalties it's not just getting penalties. That does not disqualify you from getting to the Super Bowl. You want fewer than more. But for Dallas, it feels like to me, it's not just the penalties. It's against who and when. So obviously the playoff game against the Niners, they melted down and had 14. That Thanksgiving game against the Raiders, big TV game, everybody's watching it, they had 14. They're playing Arizona at the end of the year, right? There was a chance that those two could meet again in the playoffs. They had 10. So playoff game, Thanksgiving, big TV game, big end of the year game. It's when they get them. By the way, in one of those 1 o'clock window sort of games against Washington, they had 3. Against the Giants, they had 6. Very standard. Those are bad teams. So for me, it's not the penalties. It's when they happen, offensive side of the ball. And it just feels like to me when they get into big games or they get into crisis or they get an elite opponent, they melt down. And by the way, everybody in the NFL melts down. Virtually every game. I'll give you an example. Rams were one of the least penalized teams, but they had penalties. And also Matt Stafford led the NFL in interceptions. So remember the Tennessee game? So the Rams melted down. Remember the game they played the Buccaneers? And for about a half hour on our screen, they had this lead on Tampa, and they just melted down. They snapped the ball over Stafford's head. They got Jalen Ramsey got beat badly up the sideline. You're like, oh, they're melting down. They had 4 penalties in that game. So everybody gets burned over the top. Everybody throws a bad pick. Centers will snap it over your head. Well, I'm not asking the Cowboys to be perfect, but they had 4 penalties in that game. And that's my problem with Dallas. When do they come? Against what team do they come? And it feels like they melt down against really good teams in really big spots. And that's the difference. I mean, you go look at the slide game when they lose the playoff game, the Dak slide game. Again, in crisis, they're not buttoned up. That's the play of the year, not buttoned up. And but just bang on the Cowboys because they get penalties. Got to be careful on that. So in fact, where's my list of the penalty teams? So Dallas led the league in penalties. Well, the Raiders were second. They made the playoffs. The Chargers were third. They were pretty good. Arizona was fourth. Okay. Houston was fifth. Buffalo was sixth. Kansas City was 8. But with Buffalo, I don't feel like, in fact, the Raiders were a great example. I thought they were great in crisis last year. I thought they were limited. I thought they had kind of only one way to win. They got to win by shootout. They couldn't stop anybody. But in the crisis moments for the Raiders last year, they were great against Indy. They were great against the Chargers. They rose above who they probably are. So you can have the same record. You can both get into the playoffs. Dallas shrinks with the Heat. I thought the Raiders rose in it. The Raiders can't stop anybody. They can't stop elite offenses. So penalties alone are not it. Mike McCarthy this week, by the way, the NFL preseason week 1 average was 6.5 penalties. The Cowboys had 17. So again, nobody's saying this is a crisis point. It's not a big game. But the idea that, hey, we're playing a bunch of young guys. The entire league is playing a bunch of young guys. And they had 6.5 penalties. So when do you get them? Big spot, small spot, because everybody in this league at some point melts down. I thought about this. I think Steve Young does a great job as a broadcaster. But he was critical of the Baltimore Ravens, which for most of us in the last 20 years, when you say Ravens, I don't know, I think well-owned, well-run, well-coached, well-quarterbacked, pretty good operation, in my opinion. But he was criticizing them for how they're stunting the growth of Lamar Jackson. No, he's not Patrick Mahomes because he's not Patrick Mahomes. I'm gonna go the other way. Yeah, he's not going to be Patrick Mahomes. Or maybe even a Joe Burrow. But let's be careful here. The argument that they're not supporting him. Go look at the draft picks. It's pretty remarkable what Baltimore has done since Lamar Jackson entered the league. Okay, the year they brought him in, their next picks were 2 tight ends and then a tackle. That tight end, Mark Andrews, one of the best in the league. The next year, 2019, first and third round picks, receivers. The next year, very good picks. J.K. Dobbins, receiver and a guard. This year, a center, a receiver, and a guard, first 3 rounds. That is 12 picks since the draft he was drafted. 12 of their first, second, or third picks to support Lamar Jackson. The other thing is, it's a theoretical argument. If you have really talented people, I don't think you try to alter what they are. I think you try to refine and support what they are. Lamar runs a 4.3. He's arguably the fastest player in the history of the league at quarterback. Lean into it. They went and got Greg Roman. Lean into what he is. Don't try to make him what he's not. I don't know the level of sophistication of the offense, but they have, there's an argument. No team in the league has drafted more players to help a player than the Ravens have drafted to help Lamar. And I think, by the way, this idea that he wasn't improving. So Patrick Mahomes, year 1 as a starter, had 50 touchdown passes. He's never duplicated that. Is he not growing? Dan Marino, Super Bowl, year 2, never got back. Did he not grow? I think before he got hurt last year, Lamar Jackson was becoming a better thrower. The passing game was better, was more sophisticated. This idea that he hasn't gotten better. He's gotten bigger. He's gotten stronger. He's gotten more accurate. But I think they've done a great job. Look at that draft board. The same year Lamar came in, they have gotten him centers, guards, tackles, receivers, tight ends, and running backs. That is how you do it. And I would push back entirely that he wasn't improving. I mean, Patrick Mahomes never had 50 touchdowns since the first year starting. Is he no good? The truth of the matter is that Kansas City doesn't want Patrick Mahomes throwing 48 times a game. The more chances to get hit. So I think I keep saying this. The Lamar Jackson offense is working. His first year he gets in, he goes 6-1. Next year MVP. Next year wins a division, wins a playoff game. And then last year was a number 1 or 2 seed in the AFC when he got hurt. It's working. Why are we nitpicking it? It's working. It's working very, very efficiently. Well, he's not winning multiple playoff games. It's hard. How many Big Ben win in his last 8 years? It's hard to win playoff games. It's hard to win games in that division now. Cincy's real. Pittsburgh's loaded. Cleveland's got players.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.